Welcome to the Customer Wins podcast, where business leaders discuss their secrets and techniques for helping their customers succeed and in turn grow their business.
Hi, I'm Rich Walker, the host of the Customer Wins, where I talk to business leaders about how they help their customers win and how their focus on customer experience leads to growth. Some of my past guests have included Dr. John Randall of XFA Coaching, Chirag Gandhi of Millie, and Thomas Clausen of Slant. And today is a special episode in my series on new and emerging solutions. And today's guest is Jagdeesh Prakasam, founder and CEO of Qdeck AI. And today's episode is brought to you by Qdeck, the leader in enterprise forms processing. When your business relies upon processing forms, don't waste your team's valuable time manually reviewing the forms. Instead, get Qdeck. Using Qdeck, you'll be able to generate completed forms and get back clean, context-rich data that reduces manual reviews to only 1 out of 1,000 submissions. Visit qdeckforms.com to get started. All right, I'm excited for today's conversation. Jagdeesh Prakasam is the founder and CEO of Qdeck AI, an enterprise-grade AI-powered platform transforming how financial advisors operate in the front office. Qdeck AI serves as an intelligent co-pilot, combining patented finance-native AI with real-time data, portfolio intelligence, and compliance-ready outputs to help advisors move faster, reduce risk, and deliver better client outcomes. Jag, welcome to the Customer Wins.
Hi, Rich. Great to be on your show.
Oh, I'm excited to talk to you. So for those who haven't heard my podcast before, I love to talk to business leaders about what they're doing to help their customers win, how they built and deliver a great customer experience, and the challenges to growing their own company. So Jag, I want to understand your business a lot better. How does your company help people?
We build an AI co-pilot for wealth advisors. Essentially, what we do is we create an outcome as a service for wealth advisors with the power of AI.
Outcome as a service. Does that mean pricing, or does that mean like there are specific outcomes that the advisors are asking from you?
Exactly right. So unlike a traditional SaaS world, software as a service world, where a vendor or a product creator comes up with a vision, creates a product, and forces the customer to fit into that product and run their business, what we do is we go to the client and say, tell me or talk to me about the journey, your advisor journey, and how you orchestrate it today, and we will recreate that in a more efficient, productive way for you. And that's why I call it outcome as a service.
So does that mean you're re-architecting their entire internal systems? Are you getting rid of their CRMs? Are you making them work better? What does that look like most of the time?
That's a good question. And many times that's always the fear with, especially the wealth world, because in financial services itself, systems, a change of system is always opens it up for risk, especially when dollars and cents are involved. I'm going to miss a transaction or what have you, right? So in this particular case, that's not how we are approaching it. Some of them have a blank slate. They're long overdue for a tech upgrade, so they might adopt a completely new sort of architecture or framework. But in most cases, what happens is they have an existing tech stack. They like a few things, and they are open to changing a few things, or they say, hey, this is my tech stack. Create me an intelligence layer over it that I can just interact with one dashboard across all of my 8 different subscriptions. The average number of subscriptions a wealth advisor has is 8 to 9. And it's a little overwhelming sometimes because all these data is siloed behind these different point solutions. So that's where we come in and say, we don't need you to change a thing. Let me go build that layer for you on top of it.
Wow. Okay. Look, I got to tell you, my impression is that this is consulting and professional services versus just straight up software. How much of it is just software that gets installed and figures it out versus you guys doing custom bespoke work for every client?
So it does feel that way. And as you can see today, Claude is creating a professional services division. You can see OpenAI went down that path of creating a professional services because after a certain point, especially with AI, anytime you go, even us, when we go on Claude or ChatGPT and prompt it or ask a question, we are so free flow. We wanted
Yeah.
to understand what we want in the way we ask for it. We are not using an Excel like drop down menu and going into some point and doing the calculation there, right? We are essentially doing that. So that's the expectation, really. So there is no choice but to have that professional services piece with almost all AI companies today. And the way we have tried to, there's always a risk with that, right? Because always you think, hey, is it going to be expensive? Because now you have this, how do you scale yourself? There is
Yeah.
the balance there. So we have a core technology, which is a hybrid RAG process, which we have patents for. We have a couple of patents on it. And the reason we created that is we wanted to create a trust layer. So our claim to fame, as I'm going to make a small marketing pitch here, which said that we provide the ultimate audit trail in the business, right? So we say, anything that we look at, any piece of data that we look at, once we use it to come up with an outcome for you, we give you an audit trail and also tell you what exactly did we read in that particular piece of data that made us make this claim. So this is something you can archive it, you can verify it, what have you, whether it be public data or your own private data, right? So that's the core architecture. And then above that, we have an agent studio that we build agents for different sort of advisor journeys to help with those journeys. But that's how we are scaling. So the way we do it is that makes the scaling process a lot more manageable rather than a purely professional services team that is doing custom work for every advisor. We scale, of course, if the client is large enough. Sure, we
Yeah.
to the point where we do have to do custom work. But for most cases, the agent studio is good.
That's cool. Look, you're bringing up really fascinating things in my head. I want to talk about pricing. I want to talk about the value. I want to talk about the workflow. But just to make sure I get this, I mean, you have this foundational piece of how you're managing data. Um, do I recall the Q stands for quant? That you have a
Yeah,
quantitative background, right? So you
given
understand data
background.
really, really well.
Yeah.
um, so you have that foundational layer, but then you also develop this agent studio so you can build agents really fast, effectively, to do the work that you want to do. So if that is coming together, that means your professional services engagements may not be very long, I'm presuming.
That's right. So we are in the range of 6 to 8 weeks, at most 12 weeks in certain elaborate cases if the number of users are larger and more integrations are required. But no, it's not that much more. And beyond that, it's a support fee and a licensing fee. That's it.
Okay. And are these handling entire workflows, like movement of data and making decisions and operational, et cetera?
Yeah. So see, there are two ways to, if you're an advisor today, right? There are two different pitches sitting in front of you. One is something like ours, who comes to you and says, "Hey, I can do a short-term professional services engagement, and then I'll get you to where you are and support you and charge you a license fee." But the other one is there are just pure consulting firms who
Yeah.
come up to you and say, "Hey, let me go do it, and I will continually build it for you." The incentives are very different for both these things. In our case, we have a product. We are trying to make sure that we can meet you where you are. You can think about it like we see ourselves as, like what Uber did to cab hailing. Like maybe in the past, in
Yeah.
the old days, what we would do, we would go to a hotel or some sort of
A
airport, or
hub.
whatever, some location, some hub where we can find cabs and flag one down, right? But they did a simple thing. They met their clients where they are. That's all there was. They found a point where they could say, "Hey, this is my location. Hey, you know what? I'll come meet you right there." Right? That's how we see ourselves. So that is how we are saying, "Hey, we have a product here, but we can meet you where you are and customize it. But you don't need to be engaged with us on a professional services basis for all the way for the rest of your existence." Right?
Yeah.
When you go to a consulting arm and things like that, the biggest challenge sometimes you face is, sure, let's say they put together this, wire you up in the way you want it to be done, but then they have to be continuously engaged. And most firms are not technology firms. They're wealth management firms that use technology to deliver great outcomes for their clients. That's it. They're not
Yeah.
looking to innovate or create patents or anything like that. They're not trying to sell a wealth tech platform, right? So there's a
Right.
bit of a
They
difference.
shouldn't be they shouldn't be building their own software is what you're getting at, right? They're not trying to innovate. They're just trying to do the business they have to do. I love that you said it this way, that you're trying to meet your client where they are. And that means where their tech stack is, what their current state is, how their processes work, et cetera. And I love that because that's just one of the ways in which AI is making new things possible, right? Because you're really unlocking the speed, the compression of time, and the creativity through AI to actually accomplish these things really fast. So let's talk about this now from an outcome standpoint. I'm assuming there's a professional services fee, but so they're paying for the outcome of that professional services fee.
Yes, there is a professional services fee, but it's short-lived. So you can kind
Yeah.
of do 2 months or 3 months. That's it. It's not, and especially if you're getting into a contract that goes on, it's not priced in the traditional sense of a professional services because we are customizing those agents on our tech to be delivered for a longer term, support
Yeah.
licensing contract. So
Right. Um, are you finding that customers are seeing that you're doing things they couldn't do, or you're doing it 10 times faster than what they would have done? I mean, what kind of results are you actually hearing customers talk about?
no, absolutely. So, I can give you two cases that, comes to mind in a live client basis. So one of the things is, and I'm sure you read these stats, Rich, and you know, a lot of the clients that have left their advisors, the churn rate, if there is a poll out there, you can look it up, and they did it actually nicely. They did it across your asset, your net worth, or whatever is with the advisor, right? So it
Yeah.
was 100K to a million, and then there was a million to 5 million, and then there was 5 million to 25 million. So there were the three cases. They said, let's go ask them. It was an exit survey, or people who had changed. It was a wider survey that said, why did you change your advisor, right? And many a times, um, the majority of the time, it was client service, client communication. 60% of them said it was due to client communication, right? And
Lack thereof? Bad?
lack thereof. So they were not,
Okay.
getting enough communication from their advisor. You got to remember, we are living in a digital native world. A lot of the people who are inheriting the baby boomer wealth as well are digital natives. So
Yeah.
for them, communication is all over the map. I mean, the amount of notifications all of us get in a day is, I have to turn them off.
I know.
But
I
they're
know.
used to it, right? And if they don't hear some level of immediacy in those communications, especially when it comes to their dollars and cents, uh, you know, I think it doesn't matter what it's telling us. It doesn't matter if it is $100,000 account or a $25 million account. 60% of them across, like each vertical, it was like plus or minus 3% on each category. But
Yeah.
was that they're leaving because my advisor didn't communicate well enough. So one of the advisors was really early in picking up on this trend, right? Because they were watching this in their book where they said, we send out these bland newsletters, or cookie cutter newsletters. I shouldn't say bland. Maybe they're very interesting, but once a quarter or what have you, and hope that the topics that we are covering are interesting to our clients, and maybe 10% of the book will come back to us and inquire further. That shows validation that they're sending you content that's worth reading. This is
Sure.
and many advisors do it differently. They have like semi-annual dinner talks and this and that. It depends how you do it. And they were not they were not getting, the way they found the satisfaction level wasn't high, is constantly they had inbound emails coming from their clients about different topics. Right. And then they said,
and not consistent across the board. Everybody had different topics.
everybody had different topics. It was a diverse set, and you can imagine, depending on, you're a business owner here, you're a professional here, and you can imagine, and family situations are different. But what they found is this. It takes a lot of time from a client services perspective to actually dig into the issue, give them a thoughtful response, an actionable response. And 80% of the time, they don't act on it. They just want to know about it. 20%
I've been guilty of this. I've been guilty of this. I get it. Oh, hey, advisor, tell me this. Okay, I'm not going to do anything.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So it's a common thing. You're on the golf course, your buddy told you about, a new investment vehicle or some category, and you said, you know what, I'm going to ask my advisor because this is the only space in professional services that people engage is not built by the hour. So if you're an attorney, you think about it because they're billing you by a 6-minute increment, right? But this is one of those things. Advisors get hit all the time.
Yeah, right.
And it is, and they miss a lot. They were missing a lot of like incoming emails, and then they said, there has to be a better way to do this whole thing. And I really want to service my clients. I want to improve retention, client satisfaction, but this might also bring in organic growth from my existing book that I already hold the trust with, right? Mm-hmm. And this is where we deployed an interesting one because we deployed an agent, client services agent, between the actual team and the client. Their email traffic automatically dropped by over 50% or more on these kind of one-off requests or even like asking questions about investments, what have you.
Hold on. So you said email traffic dropped. Does that mean clients stopped asking, or are you saying they were getting back faster and so the team had fewer to worry about?
They were interacting. So this was a three-way communication in the chat engine between the client, the client services group, or the advisor is on it as well, and this chatbot and this AI agent that we deployed in there, right?
Okay.
But AI agent was context aware of that client about their portfolio, about, and they had approved, I want to say about 20 different, now it's gone up to 200, but 20 different initially on the start, 20 different major news sources that can answer that particular query, like licensed news sources. So we allow for that. We say, hey, you're an advisor, you're in a fiduciary business, you want licensed news sources only, and you can pick and choose, depending on your client book, how they're spaced and which part of the country they are, whatever matters to them, and you can pick and choose. These are the only things I want feeding into my public answers, whatever I source from the public world, and here is an access to a private repository of research that we collect or create, right? So the beauty of it was they would ask questions to our bot, and it's a white label bot. We power it, but they would ask questions and get answers in real time. So about 50-60% of the time, they got their answers right away. The client services group didn't even have to jump in. And then every once in a while, if they kept going, we would say, hey, would you like to schedule a call? Which was great. Now, it worked like old school cookies, like if I went and searched for a mountain bike, how it is, the mountain bike would show up in every other browser or any other website that
now you're on YouTube and the mountain bike's there. Like
the ads are out there, right? So like that, but in this sense, they were able to meet their client where they are. They were able to see what exactly they're searching for, right? What are they looking for? Because today, if you don't give them away, they're going to be going to ChatGPT directly. This search is happening outside of the purview of the advisor.
Yeah.
And then when that happens, they have no idea context as to why this client is coming in and asking me about this. But now they were able to see their whole chat history, they can actually see it in real time and say, okay, I get it. And many a times they landed up getting organic growth because they'd say, hey, would you like to invest more in gold? Would you like to put in more money? I see you had a liquidity event. You're looking at putting some money into different investments. Can I suggest you a few options? Looks like you've been researching, whatever, gold or oil or whatever is your flavor, right? It was a. This is where I tell people every client of mine is a co-founder of Qdeck, and it's a simple reason because they tell me what they want many a time. Sometimes, as a product creator, you can't see all the scenarios because they're doing their business on a day-to-day basis. They know exactly what the pain point is. And if we can
So
meet them,
actually, you've taken this from a different perspective. You didn't say, let me build a better dashboard. Let me build a better analytics system. Let me build a better chatbot. You said, let me build a studio to
yeah.
create agents, and then we'll build out this bespoke system our customers actually need and want. Which actually, Jog, this is really smart because I have a friend. He just quit his job because he realized more people need consulting on AI enabled solutions than are consultants out there. And he can make 10 times the money doing that kind of work versus the job that he had. So he started doing that. And it's just going crazy because everybody sees what's possible with AI, but they don't know how to do it themselves. And like you said, these are financial advisors who don't want to be technologists. So you're helping do that for them, right?
Yeah. No, that is exactly what we found would be the best way to interact.
Yeah.
What we have, we are in the best time in the world we could ever be in in terms of how we
No,
can
that's amazing.
software.
Uh, So let me ask you a harder question because look, I've built agents. I understand agents really well. Um, how are you putting boundaries, controls, and making sure that AI agents don't do things they shouldn't do? How do you constrain them?
So we have extremely tight guardrails on every agent. So when we reimagine a flow, let's say, um, I'll give you an advisor journey is a proposal generation, right?
Sure.
Typically, um, this is a crazy stat, and you should help me out here if I'm getting my numbers right. But apparently, 50% of proposals from leads fall apart because it gets stuck in some complex advisor journey,
Hmm.
which is a crazy
What
number.
was it? The paperwork? Was it the forms? Because I can fix that.
Yeah. Yeah,
Sorry.
maybe they should talk to you. This is we should partner on this. I'd love to host your farms into that advisor journey, right? Because we integrate with other partners. It is.
Let's go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the reality is because there is a lot of lot of misses, right? Initially, when you're looking at an advisor, and if it becomes like you feel like you're having a colonoscopy, trust me, you're out. You're
Yeah.
like, you know
Yeah.
what, way too much paperwork or back and forth or what have you. You want it to be so simple initially, first to get them onboarded, right? And this
Yeah.
is crazy. So we created these agents. We looked at their flow, which was completely complex because many a times it required humans to they would give them their statements or what have you, extract that data, put it into Excel or what have you. They would make errors in it, so there are data errors, and then it would not compute. So someone had to verify it. Before you know it, it's like 3 weeks in, you got a lead. You had that the advisor had that conversation, but the proposal hasn't gone out for 3 weeks because it's stuck
Yeah.
somewhere, right?
Yeah.
Before someone picks up on it. So we created autonomous agents. So we are very careful about creating autonomous agents. First of all, we look at your advisor journey for a specific use case, and then we say, hey, here is how we would do it, but here are where the autonomous agents would be, and here is where the human gates are. So we put in the human checks at critical points that we think is fair to the fiduciary who's taking the risk, right? And also critical in getting things accurate, getting it correct. So we really ring fence each of the agents. We tell you exactly the scope of it. That's all it can do. It cannot do beyond that. And then at the back end, we give you a dashboard to track all your agents. And you say, this particular agent is doing great. It has a 100% success rate, but this one, only 30%. I don't know what's going on. Now you can dig into it and say, okay, this is the reason this fails a lot. Because for whatever reason, when I'm making it up, let's say a Schwab statement comes in, the PDF is not picking up because whenever this particular instrument is there in it, or whatever it is, the reason it fails, it can tell you that, right? But otherwise, it reads through it, extracts the data, administers the risk questionnaire, creates a proposal for the advisor and says, hey, this is what I would do. What do you think? Do you want me to change it? And then the advisor can interact with that before it goes back out, right?
Yeah.
So that's a classic example, but we are very focused on saying, not trying to give too much to any agent, not making the scope so wide that there is a potential for going out of scope. But also we give you the audit trail. See, this is where we focused a lot because the trust layer is very important in the wealth world.
It is. It is.
Yeah.
Jog, since last 9 months ago, since last summer, I've been working on building autonomous software development with AI.
Yeah.
And one of the things I immediately saw was first of all, I started with the premise. Software is a known thing. Like software has been written. There's tons and tons of examples of it. There's best practices, right? So AI can write software. So therefore, I think AI is an elite programmer, top of the top best programmer out there. What I discovered was it's also a toddler. It has shiny object syndrome. It goes off and does things you didn't ask for it to do. It does the wrong thing entirely. And so what I've figured out is how do you control that kind of management? Scope is a really good way to look at that as well. So, but one of the things I did, and I'm curious if you've done something similar, is I call it the hall monitor. Like when you were in high school, you weren't allowed to go to the bathroom mid class, right? There was a hall monitor out there who would write you up, a traffic cop, if you will. But some agent who's looking at the violations of the agents and their scope. Do you guys, you have the audit trail, but is that part of your thinking as well, that you're really monitoring it in real time?
Yeah, so we do monitor it in real time in terms of performance and alerts and things like that. We do see, first of all, we define the scope very strictly for each of the agents. It's a very strict scope. It shouldn't be doing anything outside of that. To your point, you're right. Like if it does anything outside of its scope, there will be an alert on the monitor that says, hey, you know what, this particular agent, there is something wrong with it, and this is the reason why we think it's wrong, right?
Yeah.
This is a classic use case, right? Like you've seen it in compliance, right? This is most compliance softwares until today, or maybe until tomorrow. They talk about archiving. Like they'll say, hey, I'll archive your emails, I'll keep it, I will store it. If there was ever an audit or if there was ever a problem that was identified, we can go back and trace it back and identify who is to blame or where was the issue.
Yeah.
It was never about preventing an issue from happening.
Right. It's all reactive, not proactive.
It's all reactive after the event.
Right.
It's like, and you would think the whole idea of compliance is to prevent it from happening, because most compliance departments or groups are internal to the firm. They're invested in the firm. They hold equity in the firm.
Mm-hmm.
You're not an auditor. You're not an external. You're not the police station sitting outside the firm. You're internal. So you're trying to prevent it from happening, right? But most softwares, if you see, have never traditionally prevented from happening. In IT, we see that all the time with cybersecurity threats and this and
Sure.
that. We've gone up that spectrum very well. But in financial services, it was still not a thought process. It's a mindset. They saw that as a friction in terms of that time to prevent that was too much in their opinion, that we would let it happen, and then if there was an issue, we go back and find someone or get hold of someone or whatever.
Well, this is what happens in forms. It is. Like it's easier to let somebody put a mistake on the form than apply rules to the form to prevent the mistake.
You see
And I
that a lot.
get it because some of those rules will create friction in the process, slow it down, and the user will cash out of that, or not cash out, they'll just bow out of the product and they won't buy it. And I look at it as, well, how do you improve that experience then? How do you make it just part of the experience? And our best customers are doing that, right? They're
Right.
actually designing workflows to capture the data in the order of requirements so they don't have that friction anymore. And then it flows to the form perfectly. So I get it. Yeah. All right. I'm going to ask you a different question. Oh, no, we're running out of time. But all right, one more question about this. Are your customers seeing you as a potential way to actually displace and remove and not use legacy SaaS products? Are they going that far?
I think it would happen over a period of time, but at this point in time, it's too nascent. It's
Yeah.
too nascent, and it's fine. I think they're more focused, like we discussed earlier. They're more focused about the outcome for their clients. See, because they are not remunerated, they're not going to get a gold star or be given higher fees because you deployed the greatest technology on the planet, right? They're only remunerated based on the returns, the assets, the services that they offer. And if they can meet their clients where they are, is the only way they are going to get remunerated, right?
Yeah.
And that's not been a focus for that reason. And I totally see it. It's actually fine, but it might get there over a period of time. Um,
I agree with you. It's very, very early. I only know one firm in particular. I'm not going to mention them. That has completely gutted their systems and rebuilt themselves from the ground up using AI to get the exact systems they wanted. They had the will, they had the technical expertise, they had the money and the time, and so they did it. And it's an amazing outcome. I mean, they're getting what they want out of their systems and the control to go change it. All right, before I run out of time, I'm going to get to my last question. Before I do that, what is the best way for people to find and connect with you?
uh, you can go to qdeck.com or email uh, day1@qdeck.com, and a team will get hold of you and set you up with whatever you need.
Awesome. Awesome. All right, look, I love asking this last question here. Who has had the biggest impact on your leadership style and how you approach your role today?
I'm going to give you two people that, of course, one is personal and one is professionally. One of them is my dad, and many a times you don't appreciate your parents enough when you're growing up, but
Mm-hmm.
they when you look back in hindsight, and unfortunately I lost my dad a couple of years ago, but when you look back in hindsight, you say the value of the lessons that they imbibed in you. And one of the biggest things is, you know optimism. You're going to life is not going to be a straight line. It doesn't matter how good your education may be, your pedigree is, or whatever it is, but life is never going to be a straight line. You're going to face some challenges. It's a marathon. It's all right. You'll hit
Mm-hmm.
some road bumps. You're going to have some learnings out of it, and then you're going to bounce back and solve it. And that's what makes it a rich experience for you. But also, that's why people value experience, saying, hey, you know what, that person has gone through all challenges and bounced back. So in the event that this person runs into future challenges, they know how to bounce back and not panic or come out, completely drop
Yeah.
off, right? And I think uh, his sense of optimism, I was like, I recognize it today, and I think have internalized it growing up. So running a startup, as you know, Rich, you've been doing it for a while now, and nothing phases me, and it's great. I'm comfortable sleeping at night with the uncertainty of what we face every day, and that's all right. On a professional level, it's to be honest, as I've had many people I've admired and things like that in my career. when I was in the quant fund and now, in AI. But I have more so, I would like to focus on someone in the wealth world and after I started my startup and things like that, I requested him to be on my advisory board. His name is, believe it or not, Bruce Lee. Okay. And it's a name you can't forget, right?
Right.
And he's an advisor. And I've met a lot of advisors. They're very focused on, uh, the investment business, very focused, hyper focused on their existing client pool and how they're servicing their business and things like that. But I felt when I met him and he started understanding my business and the things that he asked of us, was very visionary in nature. He looked at it, the bigger picture. He said, um, how do you bring about all aspects of wealth? And then he's now going towards also bringing in wealth and health together, which, when you think about it, are two core pillars, that a human being cares about ultimately. If you only have wealth and no health, and it doesn't matter. It is meaningless to you, right? You can tell them I've grown 40% average annualized return for 20 years, and it doesn't matter if you're not going to survive or if your health is horrible, right?
Yeah, I
And
know.
and he's managed to sort of talk about that vision, but also has been very tech forward. So one of the use cases that I told you earlier in the show here was essentially his request for his clients. And I thought it was phenomenal when we deployed it. He had first month or second month, he had 40-50% adoption within his clients and
Amazing.
using that, right? So, and it was sort of an event that for me opened up my mind to say, there are advisors who, if we spend enough time, you can find those visionaries. And I'm looking forward to meeting more of them. But he's been a phenomenal sounding board for me, and through this sort of process.
Yeah, I love meeting people like that. I really do. I've had many, many customers that have impacted our direction, our ideas for what we could do, challenged us to think harder and bigger about what we were doing. It's remarkable. It's one of the best parts of the journey of being an entrepreneur. So thank you for sharing that today. All right. I hate to wrap it up, but I have to. So I want to give a big thank you to Jagdeesh Prakasam, founder and CEO of Qdeck AI, for being on this episode of The Customer Wins. Go check out Jog's website at qdeck.ai. And don't forget to check out Quick at quickforms.com, where we make processing forms easier. I hope you've enjoyed this discussion. We'll click the like button, share this with someone, and subscribe to our channels for future episodes of The Customer Wins. Jog, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks a lot, Rich. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening to the Customer Wins podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.